Hi everyone and welcome to our summative assignment. We are going to create a family photo calendar, one that looks like this here. You are going to create this and print it and then bind it together. To do it, we're going to be using Photoshop. So let's take a look at how we're going to make this. Basically, we're going to have a sheet of paper and it is going to be 11 inches across and 8.5 inches in height. That's a standard letter size. And that's what we're going to set up in Photoshop. So let's go and do that first. So we're going to go File, we're going to go New Blank File, and we're going to call this Unit Summative. And this is going to be a template that we're going to use over and over again, and that will save us time and effort. So we're going to set this up. So like we said, we want this to be 11 inches wide, and we want it to be 8.5 inches in height. And to get a really good clear resolution, we're going to use 300 pixels per inch. We're going to choose RGB color, and we're going to have the background contents as white. So we're going to click on OK. Now notice here that we have all these squares on here, and the reason why is when I go to view, I can see here I've got rulers and I've got grid, and across the top here I've got rulers here, and that's in inches. I can click on that and you can see that that disappears. So I can put those back on. This has a bunch of squares because if you go to view, we have the grid on. So you can turn that off if you want. Even if you have the grid on, when you go to print, you're not going to see the grid. This is going to help us line things up properly and get everything just perfect for our calendar. Now, one thing to note here, when you go to view and go to snap to, I want to make sure both of these are on. Snap to guides and snap to grid. And what that does is, as we draw, let's say squares in here, it's going to snap right into place into the grid that we've created. Now, how do we know what size of grid we want? Well, you can change it. We're going to go to Edit, and you're going to go to Preferences. You're going to go to Guides and Grid. And what we want to have is we want to have a grid line set to every 0.5 inches. So put in 0.5 here, make sure this is inches. We're going to set the subdivisions to 3, and you'll see why we do that later on. I'm going to click on OK. And so we have this here. Now, if I just zoom in a bit here, Control plus, just zoom in, and I'm going to move this over to the side here so you can see these rulers working. If I put it right here, you can see starting at 0 going across. This is in inches. It's going to be 11 inches across. And starting at 0 going down here, this is going to be 8.5 inches in height. You can see it stops there. So in the top half of the page, we're going to have our family photo. In the bottom here, we're going to have our calendar. And in fact, we're going to put 2 months down here. So we can have January and February here. We're going to have 2 months for each page. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to split up my page so that I can see that I'm going to be working in the top half, which is the photo, or the bottom half, which is our calendar. And if I just go over like this, I'm going to split my page. This is 8.5 by 11 in height. Half of 8.5 is 4.25. I'm going to go here. It says rectangle tool, but if I click on that, I've got a bunch of tools I can use here. I'm going to use the shape tool, which is actually a line. I'm going to click on the line tool, and I'm going to choose just a bright color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line across my page to separate the top and the bottom. So here's 4, here's 4.5. So 4.25 is going to be approximately here. Now I'm going to delete that later on. So I know it's snapped to grid, so it actually snapped up a little bit higher than halfway, but it's just going to remind me about roughly where I've got the top half of the page and the bottom half of the page. I'm going to remove that later because what you're going to do is you're actually going to cut that down the center. So we're going to next just zoom in here. I'm going to start making our calendar. Now, each one of these squares is a half of inch. We want to make sure that when we print, we're going to have a ½ inch of white space all around the edges here. So we're not going to start right against the edge. We want to have a ½ inch of white space. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to use the rectangle tool. I'm going to choose a light color. Doesn't matter what color you pick. And I'm going to put in a square right in the bottom here. And notice that I'm a ½ inch away from the edge here. I'm ½ inch away from the edge here. And that's created a shape here, which we see in this layer. This layer is our line that we created. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this here because this actually represents one day of the month in our calendar. And I'm going to go here, click on the Move tool. So there's that there, and I can move that around wherever I want. Notice it'll snap right into place because I've got Snap to Grids on. I'm going to right click here and I'm going to go Duplicate Layer. Just going to click on OK. And notice here that it's nothing showing, but if I use my Move tool and click, then I can see that actually I get another square that's exactly the same. And I'm going to click up here and I'm going to do that again. Duplicate layer. And I'm going to put one up here. Snaps right into place. Duplicate layer. And I'm just going to keep doing this. Now these are the lines or the weeks in my calendar, if you will. And how many do I need? Well, there's actually months where you need 6 lines. So I actually need 6 lines here. So I'm going to need one more. And duplicate layer, click OK, and I'm going to put that there. So there, I've got my lines. So this would be week number 1, week number 2, week number 3, and so on. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I need to duplicate that for the rest. I'm just going to zoom out, Control minus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I've got my Move tool selected. I'm going to click and drag over top all these. I'm going to select all these. Notice it's selected all these layers over here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate a whole bunch of layers at once. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to use my Move tool, click here. I'm just going to drag it over. And there. We've got those days of the month. I'm going to right click and I'm just going to do it again. Duplicate layers, click OK. And there, I've got those ones. Now, we need to go Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I need one more day here. So I'm just going to click on one of these and I'm just going to duplicate that layer. And let's put that down here. And let's just finish this off with these here. So there, I've got my first month. This could be January, February, whatever. It has to be 7 across, and it has to have a height of 6 lines. Now, if I just zoom out once more, Control minus. There, I've got my month on this side of the calendar. Now I need to do it over on that side. Well, to make my life easy, make sure you get the Move tool selected. I'm going to click and drag over all of those. It selects all these layers here. So I can just right click, duplicate layers, and there, I've got my calendar for next month. So I'm going to click and drag and bring it over there. Now notice right now I do have a lot of white space in here. I'm going to try to get some better balance here. So I'm actually going to click and I'm going to pull this over here so it looks like that. So I've got an inch of white space here. I've got a ½ inch down here. And I'm going to click and select all these and I'm just going to move this over so that I've got an inch of white space here and ½ of an inch down here. Now that looks good. So next thing I'm going to do is figure out what month I'm going to start with. If I'm going to start in January of the new year, I need to go to the calendar and figure out what day does it start? Does this number 1 start on a Wednesday, or what day does it actually start on? So let's assume it just starts on this one here. So I'm going to zoom in and go in here, and I'm going to click on my text tool, and I'm going to click right at the top of these squares here. If you can see it, click and drag down, and it looks like that. Now, we want to make sure that we choose a font size that is going to fit in all these squares. And we know that we can go up to double digits. So I want to make sure I'm going to plug in 2 digits. So let's plug in, let's say 22. So like so. And let's just make this black. And looks like so. And so there's my text. And if I just double click, so that is 18 point. So you might want to use 18 point or somewhere around there. And it looks like that. Now, let's say that I'm going to bring this all the way down here. Notice it's going in behind here. That's because the text layer is below the square layer. So let's fix that. I'm just going to put it there. And let me go find down here. Here's my text down here. It's behind the color. I don't want that. So I'm going to click and hold. And I'm going to bring it up top here. Just hold, and you're going to bring it all the way up. And it's going to put it right at the top here. I can click this down. So there. This is on top. Now, notice, why did I pick 3 subdivisions for my grid? Well, that gives me a nice line that I can place my text on. You can see I've got the 22 right in the middle there. And so when I zoom in, let's just go Control Plus. Let's take a look at that and see what it looks like. There, that looks nice and centered. Now, if I click on this here, here is this shape down here. I'm going to click, and I'm going to bring this all the way up and show you something. I'm going to put it right beside the 22. So I've got the text layer here, and I've got the shape for it right beside. Now, what I want to do is I actually want to put those 2 things together so that when I do another month, I can click and I can drag the square and the number together. So in other words, I want to link those 2 together. And that's what these tools are here. So if I hold down my Shift key, I can select both of these layers and then click on the link, and that way those 2 are always linked together. So now if I'm using my move tool, I can click on this and then I can move that wherever. So when I do the next month, I can just copy this one and it's going to make my life easier. Now, you can choose another color if you wish to do the other squares. So let's just say that I'm going to click on this here, and let's choose a yellow. And if I draw this in here, and then I'm going to use my text tool, click at the top here, and let's say this is the first day of the month, and let's say that it is a Sunday. I've got a color of yellow on yellow. I got to change that so it looks like that. And again, I just want to double check, double click that. That is 18 point as well, so that looks good. And if I click on that, what I can do is I can move that down on the line here, and I can center that there. Now, we do have other align tools you can use as well, but if we have it set up like this and we use our subdivisions, it will line up nicely. So again, I want to link those 2 together, so make sure I got the right shape. So it's this shape here, and this is the number 1 here. So if I hold down my Shift key and that one and link those 2 together, there, those 2 are always linked. So I can move that wherever for my next month. So if I just Control minus and zoom back out, there, we've got our calendar started. you have the idea now. You're going to put in the days in the month, and you're going to decide if you're going to start your calendar January of the new year, or maybe you want to start in this year and put it in. It will look like that. So I'm going to let you carry on from here. I would create this template, and you can even just delete all these here now and just move everything over. Just remember, if you're going to have a inch of white space here, a half of inch here, just make sure you're consistent over here for balance. This will be a full inch of white space and a half inch down here. You're going to put in your months up here. Make sure you don't get too close to this line. We are cutting that line, and we're going to be binding. So make sure that you stay at least a good half inch away from that center line there. So that's it. I'll let you get started on this project. I hope you enjoy making it. It should make for a great gift for a family member. So enjoy, and you can get started. Take care.